Happy Tuesday, everybody. It is Ahysen Nation, and we are so glad you're with us again today on the big program. And we have a special guest. He was on with us a few weeks ago, and we told him, will you come back?
That's
and he
right.
went, no, I don't think so. But we talked him into it. LaMont Cole, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Our Mayor Pro Tem of Baton Rouge. And last time we chatted, it was the end of school, and we had the big teacher appreciation event over on
Thanks a lot.
Government Street. That was a great, great deal that you guys
man.
did over there.
We had over 1,200 people show up, 1,200 teachers. We celebrated. We had a lot of fun. We were able to let teachers know how much the community cares and appreciates the work they do throughout the course of the school year. And so I'm just excited about that event and ready to roll into the next one.
And that's kind of what we're here to talk about today. It's going to be this, you were on with us since 9 News this morning.
Yes, sir.
And with Callie out on location, and you rode your bike.
Oh yeah, rode my bike over there. Just trying to be in a healthy spirit. You know, this Friday we have Pedaling for Peace. We're going to begin at 6 o'clock p.m. Start at Shoppers Value. I want to thank Danielle Sadawa, who is the owner of Shoppers Values here, all of the stores here in the city of Baton Rouge. She and I spoke about 6 years ago about something we could do to try to address the issues in crime. And really the event is more about family and bringing people together to have conversations about some of the challenges we may face in our community. But really the idea is to promote peace in the community versus anything that may not be peaceful. And so we ride for about 3 miles from Shoppers Value on Government Street to Howard Park. We start on the, oftentimes people say Florida Boulevard is a dividing line in our city in terms of economics. So we start on the south side of Florida Boulevard on Government Street at Shoppers Value, and then we ride to the north side of Florida Boulevard to Howard Park. We stop, we get off the bikes, we pray, we have a peace rally. We talk about the issues. We encourage people who are on the ride to spend some time with individuals they may not know or may not have met before. And we give them topics to discuss around crime, around education, around safety, around the areas that we recognize all of us feel confident about, all of us feel the same about. We want to be safe. We want to live in healthy communities. We want to see where there's access to resources and grocery stores and healthy foods and things of that nature. So we start to talk about how do we bring about those things so we know, because the research tells us if those things exist in our community, we see a decrease in crime. And so we pedal for peace, we communicate, we laugh, we talk, we eat, we have fun, and then we go home. You know, it's an hour-and-a-half event. Start at 6, and every year we're pretty much done by 7:30.
I have to ask this question because I've always wondered about this, and this is not being ugly or disrespectful,
Sure.
but it seems like the people that will go and attend these things are the people that aren't committing the crime.
That's right.
How do things like this deter crime?
Well, I think oftentimes people who attend these events may not commit crimes, but they do know people who do, right? And so oftentimes, instead of having conversations with individuals who are committing crimes about what not to do, you can give them something to do. Because oftentimes we would tell people what they shouldn't do without giving them an alternative. And so the more we can have events like this and positive events that promote crime, promote peace and promote positivity and positive activities, then folks who know people who may be committing crimes can have those conversations, say, hey, why don't you participate in this? Why don't you do this? And then the other side of that too is when you start to talk to people who may offer ideas and solutions how to address crime, you can then take the information back into the communities where crime exists and begin to have different conversations around how do we address it. I mean, I think we know what the research tells us around prevention, right? Keeping it from happening. Intervention when we're aware that it may happen, how do we intervene to stop it, and then response. And then we don't want to get to a response piece. We don't want to get to a piece where crime is happening and then we're always responding to it, which is where we are now. We want to start at the prevention side and we want to be at the intervention side. The research tells us the more activities that exist in communities where crime is high, the less we'll see crime. And so we want to engage.
Is that a stat that has been proven in other cities that the more activities in a
positive
city?
activities.
Positive activities,
Right.
correct. And we always know that crime goes up in the summer because there's people out and about not having something to do.
That's right.
And with you and the mayor's
Summer of
push
Hope.
to Summer of Hope,
That's right.
there are events all through the summer.
There are events all through the summer, all over the city, and even then, that's still not enough. Because as you said, a lot of the individuals who may make tough decisions and choose to commit crime oftentimes are not engaged in those activities. However, the more and more people we can engage in positive activities, at a certain point, there'll be less people who choose to make those challenging decisions. And so we want to try as best we can to engage the community around a series of different types of events. Everyone can't do everything, but everyone can do something. And so this Friday, we're going to try pedaling for peace.
Well, this has a lot to do, too, with your upbringing. I mean, when I was brought up different than some of the kids that are being brought up today. Some of them don't know the difference between right and wrong.
You know, I would say some of them are in environments where they see so much wrong, it becomes the norm. You know, it's easy to know the right thing to do versus the wrong thing, but it's hard sometimes to be a leader in an environment where everyone around you is doing something and you choose to do something different. So sometimes it's a result of wanting to fit in, wanting to be part of a larger group, wanting to be accepted by a group of individuals who live in the community where you live or who attend the same school you do or who have the same friends that you may want to be a part of. So it's interesting sometimes how peer pressure, I'm not talking about just for teenagers and young people, peer pressure for young adults as well, can lead them down a path of making, you know, tough decisions. So I think we have to change the environment, change the culture, make sure we're promoting cultures of positivity, cultures of peace, cultures of hope, where young people and families have things to do.
What do you think about all this people spinning around on the, you know, it's not drag racing, but it's, you know, these car races and the kids jumping on the cop car? I mean, that is just so disrespectful. Where did we lose it?
It's unfortunate.
You and I never did that.
No. There was you know, times have changed over the years. There is a huge disconnect between, you know, adults and young people. That engagement, that level of conversation, that level of interaction typically happens at school. And so if you're not in a school, you typically don't have it. We don't have the same type of community policing we once had. Children have access and young people have access to each other in a way they didn't before. So who becomes your influence, right? If all you do is spend a great deal of your time on social media every day, where you're interacting with people your age, and they're seeing things not just in their own city, but around the world that may entice them, that may engage them. It may make them want to do something or try something that may not make the most sense. Whereas when we were growing up, we didn't have that. We had access to people in our neighborhoods. We had access to our friends on our street.
Yeah, but when did it become right to jump on a police car and to disrespect a person that's wearing a uniform and a badge?
It's never right to do anything that is disingenuous or disrespectful to those who are serving positions of authority. However, we as a community have to do a better job of giving them something else to do, because oftentimes we have allowed people to go into their homes and stay inside and not do anything other than watch social media, watch television, where they see all of these negative images of things happening, and they may choose to want to participate in those types of events. We have to bring it back to family-oriented events. We have to bring back the culture of respect. We have to bring back the culture of engagement, where we recognize, who our authority figures are in our communities and how we're supposed to engage. We've gotten away from teaching young people how to engage with each other, how to engage with authority, how to engage with adults. There's a lack of respect on both sides, in my opinion, in terms of how we go about educating, not formal education, but how we go about having those conversations with people in terms of how we're supposed to conduct ourselves appropriately as it relates to just being kind, being polite, being respectful, and just being an A1 citizen here and not just here in Baton Rouge. That we're seeing these things happen all over the world, and again, when I say that we're seeing these things happen all over the world, it's because we have access to see what is happening all over the world. There was once a time where, you got your information from
ABC, CBS, NBC. That was it.
That's it, and that was at 5, 6, and 10.
That's
right?
it.
And maybe at noon, right?
Well, you had 5:30 with the national news, then 6 and 10,
right?
And pretty much that was your news back then.
That's
you
right.
didn't have the morning shows. You didn't have these 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 365 news channels that have to fill the airwaves with something.
And they're sharing, and let's keep in mind that a lot of people get their news from social media. Not even the working media, not even the traditional ABC, NBC, or CBS. We get it from social media. You open your phone, right in your hand. You go to Facebook, you go to Instagram, you go to Twitter. You can see information at the tip of your fingertips, and you see what's going on around the world. And that sometimes has an influence over decisions you make in your daily life. And some of those decisions are not always necessarily the best ones.
But I'm so irritated too sometimes when you see a story on TV, and you don't know the whole story sometimes but when you see a police officer that says, stop and put your hands up, and they're walking toward him, or they put their hands in their pocket, or they walk away and they go, what you stopping me for? Stop and put your hands up. What part of stop and put your hands up and do people not understand? And then the police officer gets defensive, and sometimes there's an accident involved, and then all of a sudden the family comes up and goes, the police was wrong. When did it become right for us to disrespect the uniform and the badge?
Well, again,
that irritates the daylights out of me.
You asked a loaded question.
Thank you. I'm
You asked
sorry.
a loaded
You told me there was.
Yeah.
You told me there was nothing off limits.
Nothing off limits. So let's unpack that. Let's unpack
Thank you.
that, because ultimately, we're talking about isolation, events in isolation, because there's another side. There's the other side of that conversation, where we recognize there are officers who choose to engage the community in a way that is disingenuous. For instance, I could ask the question, when did it become okay for an officer to go to an individual's home, his or her own property, and tell them what they can or cannot do at their property when they're not breaking the law, right? If they're just sitting there having a conversation, if they're sitting on their porch eating dinner because it's warm inside and they don't have...
But how often does that happen?
Well, it probably happens a lot more than we think, because again, we're talking about what we see on social media versus what we see in the news. So watch this. If I'm an individual who gets all of my news from social media, right, and I see these type of events happening every day where officers seemingly are being disrespectful to the community, that's where I'm getting my information from. I'm not looking at the working media and I'm seeing the other side. I'm seeing this side of the information. I'm seeing in my community where officers, and it's not every officer, where officers sometimes are disingenuous to the community, and then I have that interaction with an officer. I'm going to be influenced, as I said earlier, about what I see. So if I think that this person is approaching me, and I'm not thinking about the individual as an officer of the law based on what I've seen on social media. I'm thinking about this person as an individual who's choosing to be disrespectful to me because he or she can, because they do wear their uniform or their badge. Now, I'm not saying any of it is right.
Well, that comes in screening the candidates for officer school kind of deal.
Exactly. And guess what? We, in our community, in our society, develop officers for 6 weeks who are going to go out in the community and do the most challenging job there is. And when we start to think about nurses, and we think about doctors, and we think about attorneys, and we think about teachers,
it's not
who
long
have
enough
to go through 4 years of development in order to go out and do the work they do, we have to really consider, are the people we tasked with doing one of the most challenging jobs in our community, do we give them enough development? I do recognize that all across the country in urban communities that there is a police shortage. The environment for policing in this country has changed a great deal over the years. As a result, let's be honest, of the cell phone and camera phones and being able to record incidents and then not being able to tell the whole story, right? We see bits and pieces of stories.
Oh, I'm equally as passionate about that. I don't think you should pop that cell phone up. What's your badge number?
Yeah.
That's disrespectful to the officer, too.
And it's disrespectful on one hand, but it's a safety mechanism on the other hand for those who live in communities where they feel they've been harassed for so long. You know,
and I do
like
appreciate that goes on, no question. But it's still, I just see so many elements, involved in this. I want to be part of the solution. You want to be part of the solution.
That's right.
But sometimes you have people that just don't value their own life, so they're not going to value yours at all.
And here's the other side. Here's a side of that coin. When we start to think about those individuals who have grown up in a system, right, where they got a poor education, there's no access to health care, food, and resources in their communities, right? There's no access to jobs as a result of the poor education, the lack of skills that they received based on the schools they attended, that we've been told all our lives is the responsibility of the government to ensure there are good teachers in buildings educating children. There's a lack of access to early childhood education, and now I'm 17, 18 years old. I didn't learn what I was supposed to in school, not because I didn't go every day. It's because I started at 6 because there was no early childhood programs or there wasn't enough resources in my community to gain access to early childhood programs. I didn't eat fresh food growing up. I didn't see grocery stores in my community. I didn't see anything. There was no entertainment in my community. I hear my grandparents talk about what used to be in the community when they were growing up that no longer exists. And now I'm 18 years old and I'm looking for an opportunity to do something positive and constructive with my life. And it doesn't seem as if anything exists. What do I do now, right? I'm not saying you break the law, but I am saying what you do in circumstances like that is you do what you've seen. And what you've seen in your entire life is anger, poverty, and despair. So if I've grown up my entire life in an environment where all I see is anger, poverty, and despair, there's a lack of skills, there's a lack of development in terms of workforce, what do I do now? Typically an individual in a situation like that may choose to make a bad decision.
So is this a society problem? Is this a family problem? Is this a spiritual problem?
It's a society problem. Let's start there. I think all of us who live in a community have a responsibility to try and protect and keep our community safe and try to teach those values that we know have promoted peace and positivity since the beginning of time. And so when you say, is it a family problem? First, it's a society problem that we need to talk about, that family structure, what it looks like, what exists in a positive family environment. We have to talk about, talking about a young person who experienced so many challenges in his or her life. And so at 18 years old, they suffered a lot of childhood trauma. How do we provide the therapy for those individuals? There is a report, the doctor's name is Jeff Duncan Andrade. He did a report that said a young person growing up in the inner city experiences more PTSD than an individual who's gone off to war. So can you imagine that a young person who's grown up in the inner city in an environment that all around them is crime, violent crime, murders, homicides, and that they're growing up in that their entire life, and they're suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, because they've seen, they've witnessed, they've heard, all they've experienced is trauma. Think about this for a second. The young person who lives on Fairfield Avenue, 3-year-old, lying in their bed a couple of months ago, was lying in their bed sleeping and was killed. What do you think that did to his sisters and brothers? Not only that, the families that live on that street around that young person. What do you think that did to them?
Bitter, mad, angry, wanting revenge.
I want to go out.
I mean, I put myself mentally, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I could have functioned beyond that.
Right.
Not normally or healthily.
And I have to live like this without receiving the therapy I may need as a result of suffering the trauma. Because let's be clear, if you live in a house next door and that was your friend, then you're experiencing trauma, right? If you live across the street and that was a friend, that was a child of your friend, then you're experiencing the same pain that the family is experiencing, and you're experiencing trauma. And then we have the funeral, we do the reports on the news, and then everybody goes back to normal. But those families who live there, it's not normal for them.
Never be normal again in their life.
And it's not the same.
Ever.
They don't get the trauma. I mean, they don't get the therapy. They don't get the support. And then we're talking about that young man's sister or brother who has to grow up in that household for the rest of his or her life. And then we expect them to be able to make the types of decisions that we want someone who lives in a safe environment, goes to a good school, has access to resources, healthcare, food, entertainment, and things of that nature, goes to a positive summer program in the summer, learns a foreign language, and has all of these wonderful opportunities. We expect them to be able to make the same types of decisions. So yes, it's a society problem, then it's a family problem, and then we have to talk about what those things look like. As it relates to law enforcement in the community, we have to be engaged in what that looks like. What do we want? You know, law enforcement has changed a great deal over the years. I remember officers walking up and down the street. I remember officers coming to my grandmother's house and talking to my grandmother. I remember.
And your grandmother giving them coffee.
That's right. I remember we knew the people in our communities. We knew who was servicing our community. We knew the mailman. We knew the law enforcement.
Are we too far gone to get back to some of that?
We're not too far gone at all, but I think we have to shift the paradigm back to a more community-driven engagement as it relates to not just law enforcement, but all of those service workers who provide services in our community. The firemen, you know, I don't think people in our community recognize that most fire stations are open to the public. You can go, you can get on the fire truck, you can bring your kids, they'll talk to you a little bit about what they do. You can go into a fire station and they'll give you a tour if in fact there's nothing severe going on at that moment in time. I don't think people recognize or understand that those things exist, and we have a lot of wonderful, beautiful new fire stations here in the community. So, I mean, you can walk into a police station and have a conversation with law enforcement just about what's going on in the community. So I just think that we have to promote positive engagement with all of our service workers and make sure that families and folks know what's there for them and why people are there, and what the work is that they're doing in terms of how we can move our communities forward.
I love you. You're so positive.
Yeah, well, you know,
you're so positive.
At the end of the day, you know, I firmly believe there's more good in all of us than bad. And if you wait long enough, a person will show you how good he or she is. And sometimes it's just the experiences an individual has had. And if you can give them a positive experience and change the mindset, change the thought process, what you will see in return is something good. So try to be positive in every endeavor. And listen, the conversation we're having today is a challenging one, right? But it's one that needs to be had in the way that we're having it, right? You've seen things that are extremely frustrating to you, as have I. But we have to be willing to have the conversation versus running away from it or pretending it doesn't exist. You and I both know.
But you have to do it in a respectful way.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there's things about the black culture that I will never understand.
And vice versa.
You know, so that has to be done respectfully.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be done with an understanding that you're a good person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a good person.
Mm-hmm.
We need to respect each other, and I'm finding some of that respect for each just people in general that needs some work.
Yeah, it needs a lot of work. Preconceived ideas. Listen, more than being racist, most people are prejudiced, right? They prejudge individuals based on what they have seen on television or or seen in the news or read in a book or whatever the case might be. How do you approach every human being with an open mind? How do you approach every individual with an open mind and base your assessment of that individual on how he or she treats you and not necessarily what you read or may have seen? No, and I'm not saying if you know that this person is a murderer or a rapist or a child molester that you should approach them with an open mind. That's based on facts that you know. But if this is just based on something you have seen about a individual, then you generalize everyone based on what you've seen. You have to be very careful about adopting those ideas about another human being. So for me, I approach everyone with an open mind. I try to be respectful and polite to every single individual.
You're a walking, talking example of that. I've seen that.
And guess what happens? The more I'm polite, the more I'm respectful, the more I get it back. And that's with everyone. And in any position, I consider every human being walking in a position of authority, so they deserve a certain level of respect.
Wow.
And so I try to extend that to everyone. And for me, it's been on my path and my journey has been a lot less stressful as it relates to human interaction than some other folks I know.
Just something simple like yesterday. I was at the light at where was I? Bluebonnet in Jefferson, and the person next to me had a death grip. It was a female, death grip on the wheel, staring straight ahead, and you could tell everybody at that intersection has something going on that I don't know about. You've got something, I've got something. Everybody's dealing with something, and I looked over at her and she caught me looking at her, and finally she turned to me and looked at me just with a sharp, and I just went, and she went, and she put her head down on her wheel, and she looked back up and she went, and we drove off.
That's right.
And it was just like, I'm getting goosebumps. It was just the greatest feeling in the world because I pulled her out of that,
That's right.
whatever she's going through, just for that 1 second,
The human interaction, the appreciation.
And that's
of the
human interaction that
yeah.
without any verbal or shaking hands or talking at
Non-verbal.
all. So
and like for me, anybody I make eye contact with, no matter where I'm at, and I say hello. And
I love
sometimes
that.
they don't speak, but hey, I've done my part. All
I
you can do is
love
your
that.
part.
I love that. I love that. All right, let's get back to a couple of fun things. You got the big bike race. It's not going to be a race in this
Bike
heat.
ride.
It's going to be a nice, comfortable bike ride. And I'm interested that you guys start where you start, and it's over at the Shoppers Value food store on Government Street. Yeah, everybody knows where that's at. I relate to it by where Popeyes is
That's
at.
right. That's
Because it's right there
That's
on the
right.
corner right behind Community College, the Baton Rouge Community College. And then you guys, now what route, have y'all talked about the route, what route y'all are going to take?
Oh yeah, so we start in front of Shoppers Value. We head out to Government Street.
Okay.
And then we go west on Government Street to Foster.
All right.
We take a right on Foster and we head north to North Street. We take a left on North Street and we go to 44th and make a right. And then we head all the way to north again to Gus Young, make a right on Gus Young, come back up to Foster, take a left, and we head north all the way to Winburn, take a right, and we stop at Howell Park.
I follow exactly what you're doing.
So we ride through the community. And part of the reason why we do that is because oftentimes when we think about disenfranchised community where there's been disinvestment, oftentimes folks who don't live in those communities don't actually see what is happening or is not happening in those communities. It creates a conversation. So when we ride through and our citizens, we get an opportunity to see how some of our other citizens are living, it opens the door for a conversation. And the first question is asked how. And if you can ask the question how, then we can begin to think about, talk about, and reach solutions and come up with solutions. So we don't ask how. We'll say this was happening, this environment did look like this, we worked together to address this, and this is the way it looks now. And then the how is not how did it get like this, and it's a negative situation. The how is how did it get like this, and it's a positive situation. It's a beautiful environment. There are trees, there are sidewalks, there are clean streets, there's development, there's housing, there's grocery stores, there are restaurants, there are good schools, there are libraries, there are positive places for families and children to work and play, and people are happy about where they live. Listen, we all want the same things.
We all want the same things.
Absolutely.
We all do.
If we can start there, we want the exact same thing in terms of our individual existence in this world. We want to be safe, we want to be happy, we want to live in a community where we have access to the things we need and a few of the things we want.
Police escort that day?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
The community policing comes out, BRPD, the constable's office, Constable Terica Williams, Chief Murphy Paul, and the sheriff sends his team out, the community policing team out. And so, we have first responders out in case someone has some challenges riding a bike. I might need it myself.
I was thinking about that with me.
But yeah, it's a really good day. It's always a good time.
And so 6 o'clock it'll start.
Start at
now,
6.
we bring our own bikes.
Bring your own bikes. We at one time we did rent bikes, but it's gotten so big that those bikes go. Like, we have people who start to reserve their bikes, because I do it the same weekend every year, the second Friday in June every year. And so people start to reserve those bikes early. So if you have a bike, we encourage you to bring your own bike. In addition to that, Walmart and our Target have some great sales, and a lot of the bike stores in the community have great sales on bikes. So if you want to get one, it's a great activity, not just for Friday, but it's just a great activity to do throughout the summer. Biking is a great exercise. It's a great way to ride and see the community, ride and see your community. And in recent years, we've created new bike lanes here in the city of Baton Rouge. So there are a lot of places in the city that you can ride your bike, and so I encourage people to do it. Listen, I brought one for myself, my wife, and both my children, and so we ride.
This is awesome. Now, I know we didn't really get you in here to talk about this, but I do have a couple of events with the mayor's office and the big Summer of Hope.
That's right.
In addition to yours, which is the upper left-hand corner in this graphic, we also have 2 events on this Saturday.
Correct.
The Kids Fest Community Against Drugs and Violence. That's going to be at the Scotlandville Parkway. That's on the corner of Bradley and Veterans. Not too far from the airport. And then Saturday that afternoon, same day, but kind of an overlapping time. The first one, the Kids Fest, is 9 to 2, and then the Healing the Block at the Butler Community Center is noon to 3. So all of this, and then so many more activities that you and the mayor have planned for off and on the whole summer.
That's right.
And this is exactly what you're talking about.
And it's still not enough, because as you said, many of the individuals we learn are committing crimes oftentimes are not the individuals who attend these events. But here's what we have to do, and here's what's important. We have to do our part to try and engage all sectors of the community around positive events that we could create for everyone to attend. And we have to be very strategic in what we can come up with and what we can create that people will want to attend. And the other thing we have to be very, very careful about doing is if it's not something I like to do, but it's something we know a large sector of the community likes to do, and it's a positive event, how do we create more events like that so individuals who want to participate in those types of events can? Not just in certain sections of our community, but all over the community. There's a whole section of the community that loves golf. How do we ensure there are enough quality local celebrity golf tournaments existing all over the community for people to participate in? There's a section of the community that likes tennis. How can we make sure that happens? We know that Baton Rouge is a huge football city. Why do we have to wait until the fall for football season? Why can't we have summer league football games during the summer? And even if it's not tackle, even if it's flag football, where teams can go out and participate.
Oh, and then like the Highland Road Park has frisbee golf and things like that. And Breck does such a great job with
whole host
all
of
of
activities.
And the library system has so many programs going on daily, weekly, monthly at the library system. So between Breck and the library, and then what you and the mayor are doing, there are a lot of things going on.
A lot of great things. We just need to make sure we push it out and get it to those who need to hear about it, so that they will attend. And then we have to start thinking about how do we create these spaces for families to bring their children so they can participate together engage together. If there's something going on for the kids, how do we ensure at the very same time there's something positive going on for the adults,
I gotcha. Well, again, it's coming up this Friday, Pedaling for Peace.
June 10th.
June 10th, Friday, 6 to 7:30, and you're going to start over at the Shoppers Value on Government Street. It's the 5th annual, and it is going to be a great afternoon of fellowship and hopefully of learning,
That's right.
hopefully of respect, hopefully of going,
right.
wow, I didn't know this.
It's been good the last 4 years. Last year was the biggest year. We had over 400 people come out to ride. I can't thank Danielle Sadawa and her family enough for stepping up and choosing to partner with our office to do this event every year. So yes, if you are in anywhere in the city of Baton Rouge, because there are Shoppers Value stores all over Baton Rouge, I actually support their family and their stores because they do support the community in a way that is beneficial and positive to all of us. And so I sincerely appreciate her. She was supposed to be here today. She had to take her children to the doctor and didn't want to reschedule the appointment. But yeah, she's been a huge help and a huge support, and I'm glad to be able to do this with her.
Man, you are so
And
awesome.
she went to Tara High School.
Yeah,
As
Tara
did
Trojan,
I.
go
That's
ahead,
right.
go
That's
ahead,
right.
go
That's
ahead.
right. That's right.
Man, thank you for being so kind and letting me have these kind of conversations with you. And I
Anytime.
pray that I'm doing this in a respectful way.
Anytime. If you weren't, I wouldn't come back. But
I
I'll come
appreciate
back
that a
anytime
lot.
you're asked.
But I mean, it's important to have.
And as I said, for me, no topic is off limits. I think, every conversation is one worth having. I just want people to understand and recognize that, people have real experiences that are different. And we have to talk about different experience to truly understand some of what we see. Because sometimes we can think interactions are one-sided when they're not. And so we oftentimes, all of us are the sum total of the experiences we've had in our lives. And so if all of my experiences have been negative, then I'm going to expect for this next experience in the same circumstance to be negative. For me, many of my experiences have been positive. And as a result, I try to be positive in all the experiences I have. So I think, as you said, the conversations are worth having if we can do them in a respectful way. I think we can get to a point where we truly have peace in our community. We see a decrease in crime. We see an increase in positive activity, and we see an increase in families feeling safe and interacting with each other, and we'll have a better community.
That's what we all want.
Yes, sir.
You're a blessing to the city.
Thank you, brother.
Lamont
Appreciate
Cole,
it.
our Mayor Pro Tem. We will see you Friday afternoon, 6 o'clock out at Shoppers. How early should we get there? 5:30?
5:30.
Okay.
I'll be there about 3. We're going to cook. We're barbecuing and stuff for everybody.
Awesome.
So I'll be there early.
So definitely check it out, folks. It's the big 5th annual Pedaling for Peace, and it starts with us. So thank you again so much, Mayor Pro Tem, for being with us today. And we will hopefully have you a great event and great weather for it this weekend.
I pray so.
All right. And everybody else, take care. We'll see you tomorrow morning on 9 News This Morning. Have a fantastic Tuesday and a great week. Stay safe.